You've explained it 15 times, calmly, with the words they know, and they look at you like you've spoken a foreign language. The problem isn't your parenting, it's that you've been expecting a brain that doesn't exist yet. She'd been so patient with him all morning, down on his level, clear instructions, the same words she always used. She'd even waited, given him time to process the way everything she'd read said to do. And he looked right at her, nodded, said yes. And then he did the exact thing she'd just asked him not to do. She stood up, walked to the kitchen, pressed both hands flat on the bench, and breathed out slowly through her nose. Not because she was angry, because she was exhausted by not understanding why. Here's what nobody told her, and what most parents never hear until they're deep enough into the confusion to really need it. The part of the brain responsible for impulse control, for hearing a rule and actually following through on it in the moment, is the prefrontal cortex. It doesn't fully develop until your mid-20s. In a 2-year-old, it is barely online. In a 3-year-old, it is just beginning to flicker. In a 4-year-old, it exists, but it is fragile, inconsistent, and the first thing to go offline under any stress, hunger, tiredness, or emotional load. This is not a character flaw. This is not a parenting failure. This is anatomy. When your toddler hears your instruction and agrees, they are telling you the truth. In that moment, they genuinely intend to do what you've asked. The understanding is real. What isn't real yet is the bridge between understanding and doing. That bridge is built in the prefrontal cortex, and it is, right now, a construction site. So when he nods and says yes, and then walks straight over and does the thing anyway, he hasn't lied to you. He hasn't decided to defy you. He got halfway across a bridge that isn't finished yet, and he fell through. Every time. Not because he won't, because he genuinely, physiologically can't. Let's be specific about what this looks like by age. Because one of the most damaging things a parent can do is hold a 2-year-old to the standard of a 4-year-old, or a 4-year-old to the standard of a 6-year-old. At 12 to 18 months, your child understands far more language than they can produce. They know what no means. They have preferences, desires, and a rapidly developing sense of self. What they cannot do is override an impulse. If they want something, the wanting is everything. There is no pause between impulse and action. At 2, they are beginning to understand simple cause and effect. They can follow a one-step instruction. Sometimes. They have a working vocabulary and genuine comprehension. But their impulse control is essentially 0. The meltdowns at this age are not manipulation. They are a nervous system that has no off switch yet. At 3, something shifts. They begin to understand rules as concepts, not just in this moment, but in principle. They can follow 2-step instructions on a good day. But good days are doing a lot of work in that sentence. Tiredness, hunger, overstimulation, any of these wipes the prefrontal cortex clean. The 3-year-old who followed every rule at 9 in the morning is a genuinely different neurological situation to the 3-year-old at 5 in the afternoon. At 4, the capacity is growing, but the consistency is not there yet. 4-year-olds can reason, they can negotiate, they can understand consequences. They still cannot reliably override a strong impulse in the moment, especially when the impulse involves something they want very much, or when they are dysregulated. At 5, you start to see real flashes of genuine self-regulation. The ability to pause, to choose, to remember the rule and apply it in real time. It is still not reliable, but it is there. The arc from 1 to 5 is not a straight line. It is a slow, uneven, frequently frustrating construction. And it is completely normal. So what does this actually change about how you parent? It changes the story you tell yourself about what's happening. Because the story of a defiant child who knows better and chooses not to, that story is exhausting and demoralizing, and it leads somewhere dark. It leads to consequences that don't work, to frustration that escalates, to a parent who feels like they're losing a battle that never needed to be a battle. The story of a child whose brain is not yet built for this, that story leads somewhere entirely different. It leads to a parent who stops expecting the impossible, who starts working with the architecture that actually exists, instead of the one they were promised. It does not mean there are no boundaries. It does not mean you stop teaching. It means you teach at the level of the brain in front of you, not the brain you wish were there. Practically, this means a few things. One instruction at a time. Not because your child isn't intelligent, because the working memory and executive function required to hold 2 instructions simultaneously is genuinely not available yet. One thing, then the next thing. Physical proximity over verbal instruction. The younger the child, the less a word across the room will ever compete with an impulse right in front of them. Get close, get low, make contact before you speak. Reduce the gap between instruction and action. Don't ask a 2-year-old to remember something in 5 minutes. The 5 minutes doesn't exist for them the way it exists for you. When it's time, be there. Make it now. Regulate the environment before you regulate the child. A tired toddler in an overstimulating environment at the end of a long day does not have the neurological resources to follow instructions. Changing the environment changes the outcome far more reliably than changing the instruction. And repeat, endlessly, without attaching the repetition to a story about failure. The repetition is the teaching. The repetition is what builds the bridge. She walked back from the kitchen, got low, put her hand gently on his back. No lecture, no consequence. No repeating the instruction a 16th time, just close, just present, just removing the distance between her nervous system and his. He leaned into her hand almost immediately. The impulse passed. Not because he understood, not because he chose, because his brain had something steadier to borrow for a moment. And tomorrow she would do it again, and the day after that. And somewhere in that repetition, somewhere in the 10,000 Tuesday afternoons that look exactly like failure, a bridge is being built. Quietly, invisibly, one crossing at a time.